Hi everyone. In the last module, we discussed about the introduction to data management. This module will cover the objective, goal, and different activities which are involved in the clinical data management. So, clinical data management consists of various activities involving the handling of data or information that is outlined in the protocol to be collected, analyzed. Before moving further, let us discuss what is protocol. Protocol is a document that describes how a clinical trial will be conducted, that is, the objectives, design, methodology, statistical considerations, and organization of a clinical trial that ensures the safety of the trial subjects and integrity of the data collected. The objective of CDM. The primary objective of clinical data management is to obtain high quality data, keep the number of errors and missing data as low as possible, and gather maximum data for analysis. So always the CDM should concentrate about the minimum number of errors and maximum data should be collected. So these objectives are achieved by data collection. How the data can be collected? This can be collected either through paper format or an electronic format or a remote data capture specification. Then what we will do? Then the data collected is integrated into a single database to ensure the consistency and correctness. To achieve this, what are all the steps involved? Those includes the user acceptance testing, quality control, and programming through edit check programs and manual review. The goal of any CDM is to ensure that the data drawn from the clinical research supports the conclusion. This helps to protect public health and gain confidence to use therapeutics. Nowadays, there are many drugs available for same indication. This data gives a support or gives a confidence to use which drug is better for the patient. Many organizations outsource the clinical data management process to third-party IT service providers or partners or CROs to focus on their core pharmaceutical or clinical research competencies. The process of outsourcing clinical data management helps clinical research companies to reduce their operational expenditure. Types of studies. Paper studies and ADC studies are the two types of studies where the main changes between both occur during data collection, which is one of the most crucial part in data management. For any studies, the data which is to be captured should be compatible with the requirements mentioned in the protocol. So how does a typical approach to collect the data in clinical trials? In terms of paper CRF, when the patient visits the site or the hospital coordinator will enter the information which is collected in a medical record. Then the same is transcribed into a paper CRF as per the specified format. Then once it is transcribed into the paper CRF, same is entered into the ADC system. Further, the data which is available should be monitored and should be verified against your medical record. Post this process, this data is cleaned. The earlier slide shows how the data is collected in the paper CRF, how the same is cleaned and sent for analysis. Here it shows the same data, how it is collected into the digital platform. Once the patient visits the hospital or the site, the hospital coordinator is going to enter the data directly into the database. Post that, the investigator or the doctor is going to acknowledge the data entered into the system through a process called as sign-off process, which is also called as digital signature process. Post that, the monitor is going to verify the data against the source which is available. That process is called as source data verification or remote monitoring process. Post this process, the data is cleaned and sent for analysis. Now let us see what is the difference between e-process and paper process. E-process is nothing but ADC process, and paper process is also called as entry into a paper CRF. So once the protocol is received, the team is going to prepare the case report form. Post the case report form is finalized and the patient started visiting the hospital, the data is entered into the case report form, which is also called as a paper CRF. So post this, the investigator acknowledges or signs on the paper format which is available. Post that, this data is entered into a database and the same is cleaned, Post that, that particular database is logged and sent for analysis. So this is how the paper CRF process works out. In terms of electronic data collection, the database or the EDC platform, that is the eCRF electronic case report form, is available in the database. The hospital coordinator is going to enter the data directly into the database. Post that, the data is, as discussed earlier, the data should be verified against the source which is available, and the investigator has to sign off the process. Once all these processes are completed, again we'll check for verification of the data, whether the data is clean. Post that, the database is locked. What are the different phases in clinical data management? First is startup phase, then comes the conduct phase, and last is the closeout phase. What type of activities are completed in startup phase? Startup phase consists of activities like CRF designing and testing, edit checks preparation, UAT along with document preparation such as data management plan, CRF completion guidelines, data entry guidelines, and data validation guideline. Not limited to, we have rest other guidelines also. Those process we can see in the upcoming modules. So the startup phase shows that CRF designing. What is CRF designing? So to collect the data, your case report form should be neatly contain all the data which needs to be captured. Post that, the same should be tested in the EDC platform whether the data entry is happening as per the required format. Then the edit check preparation. What is edit check preparation? There could be a specific range is required for some data points. I'm just giving you an example. In case of vital signs, for example, if the study allows a blood pressure of systolic of 120 and diastolic of 70, if there is an increase in the range, then the system should give an alert. This could be actual systolic blood pressure or diastolic blood pressure is captured, or it could be some typo error also. If it is a typo error, when the alert comes, the site can modify the data and they can save it. In case, if it is an actual data, you will have a pre-populated query. Site can respond to the same that this is the actual data which was collected during the test process. So the same can be captured and they can give a reason for the same thing. And next comes the UAT process. So always an user acceptance testing should be performed in the system. So whatever the form is available, that needs to be tested along with some other documentation called as data management plan, which describes about what are all the activities will be completed till the end of the study. Then CRF completion guideline. CRF is nothing but, as discussed earlier, is a case report form. We should have a proper guideline so that the hospital team or the monitors can understand how the data should be completed. Then the data entry guidelines also states the same thing, how the entry should be completed. It also tells about what are all the validations are there, what are all the edit checks that are created. If there are any hide and show specifications are mentioned in the case report form, those are covered in the data entry guidelines. And last comes the data validation guideline. So how the data is validated, these things are required in the startup phase. Then comes the conduct phase. It is the longest and the most critical phase where the data is captured, because the startup phase shows the system should be ready. Once the system is ready and patient started enrolling into the study, the conduct phase comes into the picture. The designed CRF allows the site team or the coordinator to enter the data into the system. Post the data is entered, the investigator is going to do the sign-off process, the monitor is going to verify the data against the source which is available. Post that the data is cleaned. What is reconciliation of data? There are certain data has to be reconciled with some other data which is available in another database. Those are completed through a process called as data reconciliation. Then medical coding. So anyhow, in a case report form, you will have a medical history, surgical history, medication details, etc. Those has to be coded in a specific format, or a specific dictionary should be used. That process is called as medical coding, and data validation takes place with regular evaluation of data known as interim analysis, along with documentation such as query management form, revision request form, and post-production changes. What is post-production changes? Post-production changes is that during the conduct phase, if there are any updates or any modification to be performed to an edit check or to a data point, or additional data needs to be incorporated into the existing case remote form, that is completed through a process called as post-production changes. This also we would be looking into the upcoming modules. Then comes the closeout phase, so which is the last phase in the clinical data management, where all the data are cleaned, frozen and logged. Once it is logged, the data is available for final analysis. So before final analysis, the data will be logged. Still the database is available for the users just only for a view purpose. Key steps involved in the clinical data management process: setup, identification, assurance, data entry, monitor, protect, import and export of data, data integration, data validation, database log, data analysis, and the last process is data presentation. Setup process. The study team or the CDM team prepare all study related plans, CRFs, and they will set the study database. Identification. The CDM team will identify all the data items which are required from the protocol for capturing. So these data points should be available in the CRF form so that no even a single data item could be missed during the data capture process. Assurance. The quality assurance team confirms or assures that the plan or the tools are validated and the data meets the requirement, including the data quality. These three processes are identified in the startup phase. Data entry. The site team is going to enter the data into the system as per the source which is available. Post that, the monitor is going to verify the data which is entered into the system against the source data which is available. Once this is completed, the monitor will identify if there are any issues into the system post data entry. If all the issues are sorted and all the study requirements are completed, including the subject entry, the database is logged, the system is protected. This shows that protect the integrity of the collected data. So import and export of data. Import and or export of data in and out of database. Now this process will occur in terms of if there is a central laboratory used or the medical coding is performed outside the database, the same will be imported into the database through a specific process. That process is also validated. Export of data will occur in terms of the data will be exported from the clinical database to another database where this data is required. This could be related in terms of statistical analysis or further analysis which is required. Data integration. Map different data sets and information together in a cohesive format. Data validation. This step is to check data accuracy, quality, and completeness and is technically called data validation. It often involves queries to the site. This section also we will be discussing in the upcoming modules. And till this process are identified in the conduct phase. Next is the database log. From this process, it will be identified in the closeout phase or the last phase in the clinical data management. So this shows that it secures the database and prevent changes to protect data integrity. Once the database is logged, the users will have only view access, so they cannot modify any data into the system. Data analysis. The data is reformatted to a report and analyst. Analyst generates tables, listings and figures. So this further will be presented to the regulatories through a process called as data presentation. After data analysis, the next step is data integration into high-level documentation such as clinical study reports. The above step is followed by archival of database and tools for clinical data management. There are many software tools available for clinical data management, and these are called as Clinical Data Management System, CDMS. So there are huge number of databases which are available in the market, but we have listed few which is currently used by many companies. So those includes Oracle Clinical, Viva EDC, ClinTrial, Macros, Rave System, Open Clinica, eClinical Suite. So the use of these tools in multi-center has become obvious as they help to manage a huge amount of data. So because generally that it will be a global trial or multi-centric trial, more than one sites are involved so that the team can access all the data in one platform. The functionality of these software is more or less the same. These software tools are expensive and need sophisticated IT structure. Some giant pharma companies use custom-made software for data management, while small rich companies use open source software. Those include OpenClinica, OpenCDMS, TrialDB, and Fosco. How to find the best clinical data management system? The first and foremost thing before you search for a CDM system is to identify your needs. Once you are sure of your needs, then compare the features of various softwares. Along with this, you can also compare clinical data management system by reviewing the installation platforms, pricing, technical support, and the number of allowed users. So always you should identify your requirements. Every software has its own features, so those could be their unique features. You should see whether we are going to utilize such features. So if you are not using, then we can go with the base priced software systems also. Here it ends to the basics of clinical data management. So in the next module, we can see about the startup phase activity. Thank you.